contained. And with that, I'm delighted
to see Dr. Tobir Al-Rabi'a, Minister of Health, Excellencies, dear colleagues and friends. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'd like to thank the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for its leadership in chairing the G20 at this pivotal moment in history. Shukran jazilan. And I welcome the strong support for WHO expressed in the G20 leaders' statement earlier this year for WHO's role in coordinating the international fight against the pandemic. That statement also called on WHO to conduct an assessment of gaps in global pandemic preparedness and to report the findings to this meeting. The full report has been shared with you by the G20 Secretariat, but I am pleased to present a summary of those findings to you today, as Minister Al-Rabi'a said. The G20 is in a unique position to set a global template for pandemic preparedness. The pandemic preparedness system is like a set of interlocking gears that must all work together or the machine breaks down. It requires a whole of government, whole of society approach. There are 5 critical codes of global preparedness, which are leadership, information, financing, workforce, and supplies and accelerated countermeasures. First, leadership. Keeping the world safe starts and ends with political leadership. In particular, the G20 countries have a key role to play in promoting, supporting, and spearheading accountability and governance, including through the international health regulations. Last week, I established an IHR review committee to evaluate the functioning of this key legal instrument during the pandemic and to recommend any changes it believes are necessary. Second, information. National surveillance systems are the eyes and ears of the global preparedness, but we cannot look only for human diseases. The pandemic has shown a bright light in the intimate connection between human, animal, and environmental health. We cannot make the world safe without a One Health approach to surveillance that harness the power of artificial intelligence and data mining to generate real-time alerts across every domain of health. Third, funding. Planning and leadership can only be effective if they are supported with sustainable funding. We estimate that the additional needs to finance pandemic preparedness in all countries and globally are less than 1/10 of global GDP. These costs are dwarfed by the economic impact of a major pandemic. We know the cost to the global economy this year alone is well over $10 trillion according to the most recent estimates. Financing alone does not guarantee that pandemic preparedness will be effective, but the lack of it guarantees that it will not be. Investing in pandemic preparedness is not aid, it's an investment in national, social, economic, and political stability. We're only as strong as the weakest lead. Pandemic preparedness should not have to compete against other priorities for ODA or other forms of international assistance, but we should look for innovative approaches that offer sustainable long-term finance. Fourth, workforce and supplies. Together, we must invest in a coordinated and capacitated global health emergency workforce to respond rapidly to high-risk pathogens. And we have a duty to ensure that health workers everywhere have the tools they need to do their jobs safely and effectively. This pandemic strained and broke supply chains for personal protective equipment and other essential supplies. Before the next pandemic strikes, we must invest in stockpiles that can be deployed rapidly where they are needed most. And fifth, countermeasures. Alongside these stockpiles of existing resources, we need to be able to swing into instant action to create new tools tailored specifically to respond to a new pathogen. As you know, in April, WHO, the European Commission, and the other partners established the Access to COVID-19 Rules Accelerator to catalyze the development and equitable allocation of vaccines, diagnostics, and therapeutics, as Mr. Rabia said. As part of the ACT Accelerator, more than 170 countries, including most G20 countries, have expressed interest in joining the COVAX facility, gaining guaranteed access to the world's largest portfolio of vaccine candidates. I urge those countries that have not yet joined COVAX to do so by tomorrow's deadline. To realize the ambition of the ACT Accelerator, it must be funded. So far, $3 billion has been invested. This has resulted in a very successful startup phase, but it's only a tenth of the remaining $35 billion needed to scale up and impact. Excellencies, COVID-19 has exposed the gaps and shortcomings in global preparedness. The G20 is in a unique position to demonstrate the leadership and solidarity the world needs right now to address those gaps. Together, we must do everything in our power to ensure a pandemic of this magnitude and severity never happens again. Will our resolve fade away as it did after SARS and Ebola? Will we repeat the cycle of panic and neglect that has characterized the global response to outbreaks for years? We must seize this moment to demonstrate leadership, to strengthen surveillance, and to make the urgent investments in workforce, supplies, vaccines, diagnostics, and therapeutics. We need to end this pandemic and to build a healthier, safer, fairer, and more sustainable world. And finally, I would like to join my brother, Minister Tawfiq Al-Rabia, in expressing our appreciation to all health workers for fighting this pandemic. I thank you. Shukran jazilan, Akhi Aziz.
Thank you, Dr. Tedros. We appreciate the insightful comments and speech. Now, please allow me to give the floor to the co-chairs of the GTNB, Dr. Dro Vardhan, to provide us with insight on that. Dr. Vardhan. Dr. Vardhan, we cannot speak. We cannot hear. Dr. Dro Vardhan. Okay. We'll take it later on. Thank you. Now allow me to give the floor to Minister Mohammed Al to chair the second session. Floor to you.
Thank you very much. And I think the board will need to be given another time, but we'll try and whenever they are ready, we will come back to them. We will now begin the second session of the meeting, which focuses on discussing the gap in global health preparedness and response, and the way forward to strengthening collective efforts to address these gaps. Before I open the floor, let me highlight a few housekeeping rules, and I would really very much appreciate if all delegates, my colleagues, ministers, adhere to the time, because we have a lot of speakers and we need to be fair and give everyone an opportunity to speak. So please stick to the time. Each country will have 3 minutes. That will be shared between the two speakers, that there are 2 speakers in each country. Please ensure that the microphones are muted and only open and mute when your time comes, and then you need to mute your line when you finish. once we speak, if you face any technical difficulties, please contact our colleagues. You have been given the contact details. Now I will start with the previous G20 presidency, Japan. The 3 minutes intervention will be split between the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Health. Deputy Prime Minister Taiyasu, you have the floor. Please go ahead. Deputy Prime Minister.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Go ahead, please.
Is it okay? Can you hear me? Thank you. Officer, thank you. Well, thank you, your chair. First of all, in Japan, the new cabinet, led by Prime Minister Suga, who was a cabinet secretary last for long, was inaugurated yesterday on September 16th. I was reappointed as the Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister. Now I may work with you again. So it's my great privilege to continue to work with you on various occasions, in particular this meeting. I would like to thank the Saudi presidency for hosting this meeting, following our first meeting in Osaka last year. During the global finance crisis in 2008, I attended the first G20 summit as the Prime Minister of Japan. The meeting shows the integrity of G20 by expressing our united determination to overcome the financial crisis. Today, we are facing the COVID-19 crisis, and this is again whether G20 can demonstrate our solidarity to combat the pandemic. In this critical moment, let's fulfill our political responsibility by delivering a strong message to the whole world in the form of our joint statement. COVID-19 has reminded us of the two important actions for global health, namely immediate response and global preparedness. First, as our immediate response to the COVID-19 pandemic underway, we need to accelerate the development, manufacturing, and distribution of vaccines to people all over the world. Japan has been calling for the voluntary listing of vaccines, but it as a core of our collective action. Second, regarding preparedness, we affirm our commitment. The G20 shared understanding on USD financing in Osaka last year. Learning lessons from the ongoing pandemic, we should accelerate our joint efforts towards achieving USD. Finally, we finance and health minister share a joint responsibility to the global pandemic. Let me introduce my colleague, Health Minister Tamrosa. Thank you.
Thank you, and please, can we have the Health Minister? And if you could please limit your time to 1 minute. Minister Kato. Okay, we'll go back to the point, we'll go back to the board. I think we now have them connected, so if you can hear us, please take the floor. Okay, it seems that they are having a connection problem. So we'll now go to the future presidency, Italy. The floor is with you, Minister Roberto. Italy, Ministry of Finance.
Okay. Thank you. I would like first of all to express our sincere appreciation for all the work the presidency has put in organizing this joint meeting of health and finance ministers, and for your most of the drafting sessions.
G20 is in a unique position to set a global template for pandemic preparedness. The pandemic preparedness system is like a set of interlocking gears that must all work together or the machine breaks down. It requires a whole of government, whole of society approach. There are 5 critical cogs of global preparedness, which are leadership, information, financing, workforce, and supplies and accelerated countermeasures. First, leadership. Keeping the world safe starts and ends with political leadership. In particular, the G20 countries have a key role to play in promoting, supporting, and spearheading accountability and governance, including through the international health regulations. Last week, I established an IHR review committee to evaluate the functioning of this key legal instrument during the pandemic and to recommend any changes it believes are necessary. Second, information. National surveillance systems are the eyes and ears of the global preparedness, but we cannot look only for human diseases. The pandemic has shown
what the health minister said, just one word, which is the importance, and that's why we thank you for organizing this meeting, the importance to have a coordinated response between health and economics, and to ensure that our cooperation will bring the spread of the virus under control, which will help minimizing the economic disruption and facilitate the return to strong, sustainable balance and increasing growth. So just to insist on the link between health and economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And now we'll go to Germany, and we have His Excellency Minister of Finance. Olaf, the floor is yours.
Unfortunately, I'm not Olaf. Olaf sends his best regards because he caught a flu, not COVID, but the flu, and so he's ill. But he asked me to step in, and I have 3 messages. The first one is obviously thanking you for organizing this again. The interlinkage between global health and the global economic is critical. In the short term, obviously, for the crisis management, but on the long term also for pandemic preparedness. And the second one is that we as G20 need to invest in the recovery now, as many of us are doing. It would be too early to withdraw the stimulus, and we must avoid further lockdowns through effective virus containment measures. And the third one is, and that is I think the most important one, that sustainable recovery is only possible with a fair and equitable access to vaccines and therapeutics for all countries. And to ensure that we as G20 must step up our international support for the relevant initiatives that were mentioned several times. So foremost, the ACT Accelerator, and secondly, the COVAX facility. Germany, and I'm also together with Jens Spahn, the health minister representing the European presidency at the moment, so with our both hats on, we are ready to exactly doing that, and we hope that many others are joining us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now we have the Minister of Health. Jens, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much indeed, Minister Al-Jaddan and Minister Al-Rabia, for your initiative in the midst of a global pandemic. Today's joint meeting sends an important message to the world that we continue to tackle the crisis collectively. 3 years ago, under the German G20 presidency, the G20 health ministers met for the first time. During that meeting, the 20 ministers, together with representatives of the World Health Organization and the World Bank, run a health emergency simulation exercise on a ministerial level. At that time, I was State Secretary at the Federal Ministry of Finance, and would I have imagined that in 2020 there would be a joint meeting of the G20 health and finance ministers to address a pandemic of global scale? No. Would I have imagined that a health emergency would have such a devastating impact on our populations and markets? Not at all. Am I convinced that we can build back better and make the world better prepared for the next pandemic? Definitely yes. Afterwards, one is always wiser. I would like to use this intervention to draw our attention to the subject of preparedness and prevention. Thanks to WHO for conducting the gap analysis on pandemic preparedness. We have and we will identify gaps in pandemic preparedness. We have to adapt our political leadership to the newest scientific evidence. We need to stay flexible and up to date in our ways to address this pandemic. We need to work together to implement the lessons learned. As the G20, we account for 80% of the world's population and almost 80% of all COVID-19 cases. Therefore, it is in our joint interest, first, that we show leadership in the implementation of and compliance to international health regulations as a tool that we all agreed upon in 2005 to combat cross-border health threats. Second, that we strengthen our respective national health systems as a basic prerequisite for the fight of any health crisis. Third, that we agree on the necessity of a lessons learned process with a willingness to sharpen the international health regulation, including the reporting obligations in the event of an outbreak, and fourth and finally, strengthen the coordinated international response through WHO so that our World Health Organization becomes able to fulfill its mandate. It only can be as good as we as member states let it be. So ladies and gentlemen, let me assure you that Germany is ready to lead by example together with all of you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, and we'll go back to the UK. I think they are connected now, so we'll have His Excellency Lichtenstein. Please, the floor is yours.
Mohammed, thank you very much, especially for the leadership that you're showing at this unprecedented time. I very much welcome the G20 agreement. I think it's a clear and action-oriented statement. Obviously, there was a lot of negotiation involved, but I think it's been worthwhile as it demonstrates our unity as we prepare for the summit in November. If I could just make three very specific points on COVAX, data sharing and AMR. Firstly, on COVAX, the UK is strongly supportive of this initiative and will be making an announcement very soon, but we can't obviously do this alone, so I would urge colleagues on this call to also contribute to this vital effort. I think in that way it's important for the MDBs to have their part to play, in particular to work and finance the ACT accelerator. I think collectively we should get proposals ready for our annual meeting. Secondly, on data sharing. Throughout this crisis, we've all been using data in new and innovative ways, and it's clear there is much we can learn from each other as we learn about this new virus, how it spreads, how best to control it, what are the best techniques to monitor what it's doing. So I would urge all international organizations to work with us to make sure that we can facilitate much better data sharing so it's user-friendly and can be used by policymakers to make the best decisions, learning from all of us around the world. I think my last point, Mohammed, would be on AMR, antimicrobial resistance. Now, this pandemic has taught us the importance of being prepared. We know already that we've got a set of commitments in place to tackle the scourge of drug-resistant diseases. They already kill 700,000 people a year. That is predicted to rise to 10 million by 2050, with an estimated cost of 100 trillion to global economic output. We don't need another report to tell us that we have something to do. We must take action now and ensure that this is central to our agenda. Thank you for your time. I'll hand over to my colleague, Lord Bethel, on behalf of our Health Minister.
Thank you.
Colleagues, I thank the Chancellor very much indeed for his remarks. I'd like to echo his comments that I am delighted to see Health and Finance Ministers brought together again this year. I thank the WHO and the GEP as an important factor to today's discussions. The WHO has a vital role to play in both the ongoing pandemic response and future resilience, and we welcome its input. We also welcome the work underway on strengthening the global system's response to emergencies, including the recommendations coming out of the independent panel on pandemic preparedness and response. We must consider how, as G20 countries, we can support resilient health systems, both domestically and in vulnerable countries, delivering new tools to fight COVID and maintaining and strengthening the delivery of essential health services and public health functions. This includes tackling non-communicable diseases and their risk factors. These remain a challenge in improving health and can increase vulnerability to infectious disease, and highlighted by COVID-19. And today is, of course, Patient Safety Day, an issue that has also been highlighted on this year's health track, and which remains crucial to delivering effective, high-quality and cost-effective health services in any context. I would also echo the UK Chancellor's point on AMR. Whilst COVID-19 was, in many ways, an unpredictable occurrence, we have known of the risk posed by AMR for many years and know these will be likely to be exacerbated by the pandemic. We therefore renew our commitments from previous G20 presidencies to act now, not later, to tackle AMR, including the important work on the antimicrobial pipeline.
Thank you. And now we'll go to India, and we have the Union Health and Family Welfare Minister. Harsh, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. Chair and Honorable Ministers, the current pandemic and the global crisis arising out of that highlights more than ever the need for national and global solidarity. Flattening the curve globally will require international, multi-sectoral collaborative efforts to ensure that health systems across the world are able to maintain sufficient capacity to address the flux of complicated COVID-19 cases and protect the vulnerable and elderly in the world population. We need to focus on creating effective health systems for improved pandemic preparedness. While all the other action plans are a response to a pandemic, a well-developed healthcare system can support even in containing the pandemic. There is a need to ensure that access to COVID-19 diagnostics, therapeutics, and vaccines is fair and equitable. Access to protection should not be a factor of ability to pay. India, with a history of proven and quality manufacturing, will continue to play its role through our Make in India and Make for the World endeavour, and will support fully the development of research and digital capabilities for managing delivery. We all need to capitalize on existing programs such as the access to COVID-19 tools, accelerator, ACT-A, and ensure equitable global access to diagnostics, therapeutics and vaccines while strengthening health systems. Inspired by experiences of previous outbreaks such as SARS in 2003 and Ebola in 2014-15, global solidarity is a must in order to prevent further morbidity and mortality. Examples in leadership and collaborations should be celebrated as examples to follow. Open communication and transparency will be crucial in monitoring the evolution of the disease in the global effort of flattening the curve. India is committed to universal healthcare coverage, and in these stressful times, India stands together with the world to realize the shared mission to save lives and protect people's health and to re-energize the global economy at the earliest. This is also a time for decisive public health leadership and for preparing for future waves and the post-COVID-19 era. Public health leaders must look beyond borders. Only by learning from the global experience in our battle against a virus that respects no borders can we honor the lives already lost and implement life-saving measures for current and future patients.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and we'll go now to the Deputy Finance, Tarun Bajaj, and please, if you could limit your time to about 1 minute because we are running quite late.